Battles of Legend Monster Mayhem releases on June 13th. I'm running out of unique sentences I can put into an intro paragraph because every single set is exactly the same, so instead I'm going to take this time I have with you to ask you to subscribe. Look, the thing even lit up when I said subscribe. Doesn't that make you want to do it? I'm pretty close to 8,000 subs, and my goal for the year is 10,000, so, I mean, in all seriousness, I gotta get a move on. Also, and this is true, can I borrow some money? Here's everything you need to know. Gem Knight Nepyrim can search a Gem Knight card on summon, but halves effect damage for the turn, type 3 extra normals a Gem Hyphen, and if it's sent from hand or deck to graveyard, can pitch a card to reborn itself. Holocore milks a Gem Knight Vanilla or Gem Knight Fusion to summon himself, and when your opponent activates a card or effect while you control a Gem Knight Fusion, he can banish himself and 2 other Gem Knight cards to negate it. Gem Knight Dispersion is 2 different Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It either searches a Gem Hyphen monster, then halves damage, or Fusion summons a Gem Knight the old-fashioned way, but that would be stupid, so if you have Gem Knight Fusion engraved, it can use 2 non-rock Gem Knights from deck. Those are both an effect that you can apply when you activate the card from your hand, but they have separate once per turn, so it's literally just 2 different cards. I can't believe they got away with printing 5 Gem Knight cards instead of 4. And Gem Knight Master Diamond Dispersion is a fusion of 3 Gem Hyphens that can tag out into 3 non-rock Gem Knight fusions, but locks you to fusions, and comes back when one of them is destroyed by battle. A lot of good ideas here that give Gem Knight a little more material to work with than before while insulating their plays with Holocore. On his own, Holocore gives the deck a real free extender without a requirement like Brilliant Rose, making Nepyrim and Armadillo 1-card starters for Phantom Quartz. And his cost can be used to get a specific type of Knight engraved to fuse with later, or more commonly to get Fusion in rotation to add back with its effect multiple times over the course of a turn. And once in grave, his Omni Negate is both a protective element against Nibiru and a great interruption as part of your board, similar to Rika Princess. Nepyrim is a good normal summon that even works alongside Armadillo since you can filter her Gem Knight search through Dispersion to get to Armadillo, and use her extra normal on him to get another body before getting Holocore. But she's also a good combo piece for later in the turn since Dispersion can mill her from deck as half of a Seraphonite, allowing her to bring herself back to be half of a rank 4. But that effect also allows her to be milled from deck to start combos with cards like Foolish Burial and Vingolf's Blessing, a card that I'm being told exists. In the same vein, Dispersion being 2 Yu-Gi-Oh cards means it can also be used for multiple purposes during the same combo, being a reciprocal search with Nepyrim to either start your combo or get you to the extra body for Phantom Quartz, and then also being a good search for Phantom Quartz since if you've even so much as attempted to activate Holocore, Dispersion becomes Branded Fusion. But that all leads to a very unusual hole in this deck's support. The fusions still don't really do anything. Seraphonite is like a fine way to extend with whatever extra names in hand you might have, like one that you added back with Quartz after using as material, but for a card like Master Diamond Dispersion, you'd sort of hope there'd be, I don't know, maybe a disruption in there somewhere. Lady Rose Diamond is sort of Detonator, but only on your own turn. Great. Enough effects in this wave have your damage that Lady Lapis Lazuli is hitting like a wet noodle, so genuinely the best you can do turn 1 is summon Aquamarine to link off with Masquerena to add an extra bounce to the same chain as SP. Summoning 2 more Stooges to sit there and wait for turn 3 to start helping at least makes it a little more difficult to turn off Holocore and Grave, and thankfully this effect is the only one that locks you, so you can hold it off to the end of the turn and spend most of your bodies on board slop like Mask, Moon, and rank 4s. This next segment will be about 2 Orcust monsters, so to make sure that we're all on the same page the whole time, I am going to hold this copy of Babel on screen until I am done reading the cards. Galatea I is a link one of any Orcust or Women Lover that can only be link summoned once per turn, can't be made into Ding or Typhon, can pitch a card to search a World Legacy monster or the motherfucking field spell, baby, back on the menu, and can banish another Orcust from grave to revive herself. And Lil Girsu, the Orcust Mech Knight, requires an Orcust link, can add back a banished Orcust or World Legacy, then return a card from hand to deck to steal an opponent's monster. And during the turn it was sent from the EMZ to the grave, you can banish it to send a card on field. These 2 cards have vastly expanded Orcust's options for setting up a board, turning even more cards into starters and letting you utilize new end board pieces. iRobot can be summoned with any World Legacy like Girsu's tokens, or any Orcust from Harp to Symbol to Bombard, making all of them some sort of starter for the deck. But most importantly, making Girsu even stronger as a starter. Now, even if its mill is negated, you can still make a token into Kizuna I, search Babel, then make Galatea, and banish Girsu to Reborn I so that Galatea can set Crescendo. And even if it's fully impermed, Girsu can still be made into I, who can instead of Babel search World Crown, a Crusadia style extender that smooths over a great number of lines as the second material for Galatea. In lines that don't need to link him off, World Crown can hang out on the end board as a negate for extra deck monsters, but if he does end up in the grave, you have the option to make use of both of I's ignition effects, becoming quick by bringing her back during your opponent's turn, then pitching a card to add back Crown, followed by Nightmare milling World Wand, whose secret effect will trigger to summon Crown from hand. So Crown can consistently be part of your board if you so desire, but so too can Crescendo, which which doesn't always have to compete with Babel as your Galatea search anymore. And of course, the biggest addition to your board is Enlil-Girsu, whose steal becomes quick under Babel, meaning that he can, over the course of your turn and your opponent's, add back 2 cards for follow-up, steal back the World Legacy token you gave your opponent to make Masquerena with, and steal an opponent's monster before being sent to the grave either by Mask or Sirius, so that he can also quickly banish himself for another non-targeting send. Having to be sent from the EMZ specifically made him a little worse in the OCG, where you'd often want to make him underneath an Apollo, which became possible due to I giving you far more room to play before being dark-locked, but Abao on the other hand can be made early and then clear itself out of the EMZ, so that little G can take that spot for himself. This line also makes good use of the extra room you have before being locked by using the Fiendsmith engine as a way to get fiends, but Enlil also helps in lines where you get locked as early as possible, like with Foolish, or worst of all, with Foolish Burial Goods. Since Crescendo locks you to Dark Machines, there used to be slim pickings for interruptions you could build towards with no access to Mask, and you're presumably one of Counter Trap banished permanently. With Enlil, you not only have a great boss monster under the Dark Machine lock, you also get to add back the banished Crescendo to set to your field. In the OCG, this support made Orcust viable enough to briefly hold the top spot after Malice and Ryziel had been hit and were awaiting support in Allen. The thinking man's memento, if you will. But as Malice re-entered the format, it kinda struggled to stay relevant as the second best deck that loses to Lancia. Jurrac Megalo is a level 1 fire that just missed the boat, can summon itself if you control a dino, can pitch up to 2 cards including a Jurrac to draw that many cards, and when it's destroyed can mill a Jurrac from deck or extra. Jurrac Stego can pop a card you control to mill a dino and summon Jurracs from deck whose levels add up to that monster's, but locks you to dinos, and when it's killed in battle, they have bounce. Jurrac Volcano can pop a dino you control to summon a Jurrac from deck, protects a Jurrac once each turn by banishing a dino, and when your opponent special summons after activating 4 or more monster effects this turn, you can summon Jurrac Meteor. And Jurrac Astro is a level 10 synchro that needs a dino, set to Jurrac Spell Trap on summon not once per turn, can negate a special summon by banishing 2 dinos from grave soft once per turn, and can quick effect banish itself and another Jurrac from grave to summon Meteor still not once per turn. So the good news is you don't actually have to read any of the Jurracs you haven't thought about in over a decade, possibly ever, because those aren't going to matter. What you do gotta do is reread Aolo, which you've done before but then forgot about because it didn't do anything. Now with Stego, you can have him pop himself and mill Misk to summon 2 copies of each of your level 1 tuners, and use both Aolos to reborn that same Stego twice to climb through Velfido into Astro, who on his own represents 3 disruptions. On summon, he can set either Impact to full board wipe, or Volcano, which can summon Meteor midway through your opponent's combo to also board wipe. Its effect on field is good for keeping things like SP and Detonator from hitting the board before their effects make them difficult to deal with, and after Volcano or Impact wipes Astro off your own field, his effect in grave can at will fire off yet another board wipe. Since none of these effects are hard once per turn, you can end on multiple Astro to negate 2 summons, set both Volcano and Impact, and then have 2 more chances to sling Meteors with your Astros in grave, possibly even 3 if you milled a 3rd Astro with Megalo effect. But there's some issues with that. Setting both Jurrac back row sounds cool until you realize that whichever one you use first will destroy the other. Volcano can only protect the Jurrac monsters you control, but you don't want to protect Astro. You want him to hit the grave. It can't even protect the other dinos you may have built your board with, like UCT. While we're on the topic, Stego locking you to dinos presents its own problems, like not being able to summon the dragon type of Volzars. So even though Stego is a 1-card combo, the board he's able to put up is extremely one-note with just the worst type of negate, and then no other options outside the nuclear option over and over and over. So maybe the best idea is to just play this package as something to do midway through a dino combo by summoning Stego with a baby after you've already gone through your non-dinos, but even still, nuking your own board and only leaving an Aolo or a Meteorus as follow-up is pretty detrimental to your ability to kill on turn 3. And you'll be playing a metric crap ton of bricks like Megalo, who doesn't do anything. His effect reads, "We are sorry you have to play so many copies of this card, here is some pity fake value." So what can we maybe scrape from this batch of support? Well, Astro is not a terrible level 10 to make with Meteorus and Ovi, so playing him with 1 impact in main and 1 Meteor in extra is a fair enough option. No Punk Rising Scales can summon itself by banishing a Punk from grave, can pay 6 on summon to either search or summon a non-level 8 Punk from deck or grave. When your opponent's monster with 25 or more activates its effect, she can book it. And Punk Jam is a generic rank 8 that you can slap on top of a Punk Fusion or Synchro, can pay 6 and detach a material to draw a card, and if there's a level 3 Psychic in grave, can detach to negate a monster effect and destroy it. These cards shake up Punk's lines a bit, not completely reinventing the deck, but giving them more reliable setups. Scales is an imperfect replacement for the role of Foxy Tune. Needing to banish a name from grave means you need to either lead with Ogre to answer Foxy Tune for Xiamin, or make Xiamin into Almirage to get her on board. But the benefit of using her over Foxy to summon Sharakusai is the extra body on board and not needing a discard. An important advantage for a deck whose most relevant distinction is mainlining an in-engine Pot of Greed. So you have better ways to maintain cards in hand and play through disruption, and alongside Fever you can even insulate your plays early before getting to 5 summons or activating Carp. Since you can add to hand instead of summon, you have the option to keep Jurrac in hand if you have the normal summon available for it, and turn Scales and Xiamen into Amazing Dragon that can reborn a fusion material, then become Fever on summon 5. But you also can plop Fever on top of Dragon Drive or a Carp that you brought back with Deer Note. You can also easily hard make it with 2 of your level 8s, since P.U.N.K has been known to leave some extra bodies lying around in its combos, so you can allocate some of that into making Fever with 2 materials so you can use both as negate and as draw, bringing the total number of draws for the turn up to 3. You can also accomplish this by incorporating the Horus engine since its materials are generic, and the only stipulation on its negate is that you have a level 3 Psychic Engrave, which can be as simple as pitching an extra one for Sark. Another thing to take note of with Fever is that if you make him on Dragon Drive, detaching Dragon Drive to negate will get it into grave right on time to see your opponent respond with something like Droplet, triggering it to come back to the field and pay 6 to search Ghost Ogre, and then draw once more with Extreme Session. So between Fever and Jurrac, the P.U.N.K endboard has gotten stronger and more resilient to interaction. Advanced Swordsman of Nekroz is a level 4 water spellcaster that can summon a Nekroz from deck on normal, counts as the full tribute on field for a Nekroz ritual monster, and once per duel if he's tributed can add back any number of banished Nekroz cards. Emilia, Dance Princess of the Nekroz, can summon herself if you have a warrior Nekroz on field or in grave, searches a Nekroz ritual or Nekroz ritual on summon, and on field counts as the full tribute. Nekroz of Metaltron can Cosmic Cyclone from the scale when your Nekroz card is banished, can't be ritual summoned by tributing a 9, turns Nekrozes into Demok, and can quick effect banish herself temporarily to banish an opponent's monster permanently. And Nekroz Divine Mirror is a quick play that ritual summons a Nekroz from hand or banished by tributing from hand, field, or Nekroz monsters from extra deck with equal or exceeding levels, and can banish itself and another Nekroz from grave to search a Nekroz spell. This support has some neat interactions to build around, if not all the tools Nekroz needs to be competitive. Advanced summoning Emilia from deck gets you to Aridbear, who can tribute your names on board to mill the same number of spells, each of which can proceed to search a ritual spell. And since, unlike the spells before it, Divine doesn't care whether you control monsters or not, you can choose to only tribute Emilia and leave Advance on field to serve as the whole tribute to summon back a Red Bear from grave with Cycle or from banished with Divine. And since he was tributed, you can use this effect to add back every Nekroz you've banished so far to use as follow-up. Advance being searchable with Brian and through the transitive property Prep makes this one play pretty consistent, but you may have noticed the issue. This line only gets you to a single monster negate. And there's definitely more it could be doing even before getting into the generic pool of stuff to do with 2 level 4s on board. Unicore is still a pretty good floodgate. Metaltron is SP. With Divine Mirror, you can summon Trish on your opponent's turn as a massive blowout, but to get to all that, you have to open more than just one piece of engine. And I don't mean to be such a stickler for 1-card combos, but I know you know how to do it. Mitsurugi has 1-card combos now. Voiceless Voice has 1-card combos, I think. I actually don't remember what Voiceless Voice does. Confuses me you can give this deck an Ice Ryziel and a Stratos, and still the consistency isn't up to par for 2025 standards. And in many of these 2-card combos, you're expected to play things like Great Sorcerer that can be summoned by Advance and then tributed by Aridbear to trigger his own search. But as a card-carrying member of the American Floor Association, I have my reservations about playing bricks like this that don't even consistently come up. I just have trouble decoupling my understanding of this deck from how underwhelming the 1 card is. The Bahamut Shark plays wouldn't have even really helped because even the extremely greedy plays only then ended on 2 negates. Credit where credit is due, that's twice as many. Dragonmaid Sermba is a level 9 that protects your dragon fusions from card effects, can be pitched to summon back a Dragonmaid from grave or banished, and at the end of the battle phase tags back into a maid. Ladies Dragonmaid is a fusion that must be summoned by banishing a little maid and a big dragon with the same attribute from field and grave, summons a maid from deck on summon, and during the standby phase fusion summons a dragon by shuffling back material from field or banished. These cards, and I'm being generous when I say both of them, give Dragonmaid starters some actual ways to pop off turn 1. Ladies can be summoned by any maid that gets their corresponding dragon engrave, like Parlor milling Lorpar, Kitchen searching and immediately pitching P.U.N.K, or Chamber searching Hospitality. That last one is made possible by Sermba being a big dragon you can mill when you reborn Chamber, and its effect is certainly written on the card. Impossible to dispute that, really. So ladies can then, depending on your starter, either summon Parlor or Chamber to get changeover to hand so you can fuse them with ladies into Xiao. Then on your opponent's turn, Xiao can bring ladies back so that she can summon another maid from deck deck, and then fuse herself with the big dragon from Banished into Philia Regis. With this board, you have a negate with Xiao, a banish with Regis, and then if you're able to sequence it right, a pop with House when Regis bounces the maid back to hand. Alternatively, if you use Ladies to summon Chamber and search Tidying, she can fuse herself into Xiao in the standby phase, getting to a pretty similar board with a bit more layering to where the interaction rests. Maybe not the biggest boards, but definitely a decent enough payoff for one card that also gets follow-up going. But looking in another direction aside from Pure, you can implement the engine into Dragon Rulers as normal summons that get to an Omni before resolving Spectral, or combo pieces searchable with Chasma, Tempest, and Blaster. Since all the rulers can be materials for Xiao, you can even link off Ladies and hold Changeover for the end of the turn after you've baited interaction. So this engine can add some extra strength and security to your board that does genuinely help protect the floodgates that you're still focused on summoning, but it's not as well equipped to go second as the Tenpai engine is. The Fabled Behemoth is a light beast tuner that can discard itself and any other Fables from hand to synchro them into a Fabled, and when a card is discarded, he can banish himself from grave to summon a Fabled from hand. Fabled Realms Revival sets another Fabled back row from deck, makes your opponent unable to respond to the synchro summon of Fableds, and can pitch a Fabled to either draw a card or summon a Fabled from grave or banished. Fabled Gaming is a light fiend tuner that summons a Fabled from hand or deck on summon, protects your other Fabled synchros from targeting, and when he hits the grave can draw a card for every Fabled synchro you control, then discard a card. And Fabled Levelazeable is a generic level 10 that can quick effect tribute Fableds to negate and steal that many opponent's monsters, and can return himself from grave to extra to add back a Fabled. These cards give Fabled a much needed modernization for its setup and payoff, and deepen the archetype's diplomatic ties with the Fiendsmith engine. Gamagen summoning from deck lets you get combo pieces like Kushano into rotation, so usually combos will start by making him with either Rescue Cat or Behemoth pitching a level 2 like Cerberus. Linking off Kushano for Requiem will then get the Fiendsmith engine into rotation, giving you several possible level 6s to tune with Gamagen to make Levelazeable, whose soft once per turn negate and steal can be the focal point of your board. After tributing him the first time, you can then bring him back with Treason. Then after using it a second time, you can bring it back again with Agnum Day. And if that wasn't enough for you, you can then bring back Agnum Day with Lacrima to use the also soft once per turn Agnum Day again. Hell, you want more? Go through an Unchained engine and bring him back with Yama. Get A-bowing this shit. All you guys are fiends anyway, but since your board doesn't have enough zones to physically steal that many monsters, you're better served focusing the rest of the advantage the deck can generate on other generic Link and Synchro options, since none of the Fabled cards even lock you. Behemoth may not be a one-card combo, but since the deck has a decent enough pool of good level 2s you can draw alongside him, some of which even searchable by Tract, he's a good alternative way to start combos and extend through Rescue Cat being negated. His effect in grave combos perfectly with Kushana, who pitches a card to add himself back, triggering Behemoth to summon the Kushana. Revival is a good extender that both relieves the pressure off of Marcosia being the only way to search Stay Away or Treason, letting you more consistently see both of them, but also itself being a good search for Marcosia since it'll immediately set whatever you otherwise would have searched, making its own effect a totally free bonus. The problem with this deck is that the consistency is definitely kinda underwhelming, with a lot of your starters being old heads that lose to everything like Rescue Cat and Tour Guide, but you at least have a lot of options that can extend in engine-heavy hands, especially with Tract searching all your fiends, and conditionally searching your beasts through Grimro. And in truly bad hands that really can't Fabled combo, you at least have a significant number of normal summonable light fiends that can do full Fiendsmith combo. Oh, boo-hoo! Boo-hoo! Hey, what's wrong, little guy? Oh, boo-hoo! Oh, it's just this deck is so damn dog shit. DDD Squelted just doesn't see a point in updating the spreadsheet anymore. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo! DD Scale Surveyor can change up to 2 of your scales to 0 during the standby phase, can summon himself if you control a DD Pend, can become a 4 on summon, and when he hits the grave or extra, can bounce a DD from your scale. Extra Surveyor has too many damn words on it and can pitch itself to add a DD Pen from extra to hand. Count Surveyor kills 2 of your opponent's monsters and then gives all their attack to a third monster your opponent controls with the same type or attribute, making it big and round, can pitch a DD to summon himself, and on summon searches a DD with 0 attack or defense. These cards do a couple of marginally important things for DD that maybe will actually matter when they get their actual support, or maybe it'll be outclassed and we did this whole segment for nothing. I have no idea. Count is conditionally a starter since it searches Kepler and then can be linked off for Gilgamesh, and also he functions well as an extender that then searches other crucial combo pieces that you may need like Copernicus or Scale Surveyor. Scale is useful as an extender that can then be made into Little Caesar. Pizza. And when he's linked off, you can bounce one of the scales you tutored with Gilgamesh, meaning you can sort of wield Gilgamesh's effect as a search. My mother-in-law really liked Extra Surveyor. I'm Fairytale Prologue, Journey's Dawn. If you search me with AFD, you can draw 1 card. I'm Motor Kaiser and I am a level 5. I'm Galaxy Journey. I'm number S38 and I'm back row removal. And I'm the Water Spellcaster Searcher, Ice Doll. Phineas and Ferb are dead! Crowley, the gifted of Magistus, can summon itself when it's added to hand, fusion summons a Magistus or invoked on summon, and can be treated as Alistair on field. Vera Magic, Lacrima of Light, is treated as a Magistus and Witchcrafter card, can mill any spellcaster or spell if you control a Magistus or Crafter, or can summon a name from deck when your opponent activates a card or effect. Magia Magic, Thunder of Judgment, is treated as a Magistus and Endymion, can send a Magistus card from field or remove 2 spell counters to summon a spellcaster from hand, grave, or face-up extra, or banish a card. And Zorua, the Magistus Verathragna, is a fusion of a Magistus and an extra deck monster, can equip any effect monster from your grave or your opponent's field, and can send a Magistus monster card from field to negate a monster effect, then pop a card. This support is incomplete and I don't know what to make of that. For some reason, they're still holding back on releasing Spoon, so all of Magistus's plays that are designed around being able to equip 2 things to Little Zorua are up in smoke. There's still some things you can do with these cards, like Artemis Surge Crowley, triggering Crowley to summon himself and then fuse with Zorua into Iwas, or use Riliona's Search on Vera Magic so that on your opponent's turn you can respond to an activation by whipping out Crowley to fuse into Verathragna or Mechaba. But I spent a while studying this deck's combo, so I can tell you just about every play you want to do is just a little worse in a way that will frustrate you and make you want to shelve this whole endeavor and wait another 2 years for Spoon. So while we wait, how about we talk about Summon Sork? This errata is kinda weird, so let's break down every change. First off, it's now all one big effect. On summon, it summons something from hand, your opponent's field, and summons something from deck with the same type all at once. Furthermore, the thing you give your opponent is now negated, and whatever type of monster she summons, you're now locked to that type. This card primarily saw success in Yubel, where Beckoning Beast could get you to Yama, adding a fiend to hand, and then to the third material to make Sork with so you can summon Spirit from deck. Now with Abao, you have something to link off Sork into that can immediately bring back the Spirit unnegated to combo with, but there's one tiny issue. You see, it's 2025. Yubel is washed. An Aerial Eater exists. You don't gotta be doing all that and locking yourself for Beckoning Beast to get to Engine. Really, that's the big story of this set, isn't it? It's just all these cards are late. Because they just can't stop giving us cards way too late. Now there's a half dozen more cards that are still on the back burner for some reason that'll themselves arrive too late. What an annoying product. It also might be good in Orcust, I'm told.